Holly got first. Yup. Oh, there we go. Dashboard. My bad. I don't know why I'm still a novice at figuring out this new YouTube streaming system. I'll get the chat up here in a second so I can say hello. Hey, Katie. Asherella. Everybody, hello. Let me bring out this chat right quick. Pop out chat. Boom. There it is. Also, sorry if the music kind of fluctuates there. It's like goes back and forth between being loud and not loud. Turn down just a tiad. Just a tiad. All right, what is poppin', everybody? Welcome. Hey, Johanna Guzman with the $5 says, oh my God, Joel, hi, hello. Welcome. Welks, what's good, homie? GG. Homie Jizzle. Cadence, who never been on a stream as soon as it was, oh, well, perfect timing, yeah. I'd like to welcome you firsthand to your first Stram. Also, I'm tweeting out this, but hopefully that takes people directly to the live version of the twat, of the tweet, the twizzeet. Some people like pin tweets, but I never know if that's even like helpful at all, to be honest. At least for me, it's probably not helpful. Maybe it is. I don't really feel like a lot of people like stumble across my Twitter a whole heck of a lot. Does my Twitter serve any purpose to you guys at all? Like, either way, click that like button here. We're gonna kick off this reading here in about 16 minutes. So until everybody kind of rolls in. Usually we get around 200 viewers to start out. It seems to be the go-to live version. Jackie, welcome. I suppose I would be in charge for you. You're taking names. Taking names and eating asses. Jamie, you don't have a twatter. Well, you're not missing much on there. It's just a curated outrage machine. Really all it is. You can find some good memes on there, and they apparently allow some pretty adult content as well, so it's relatively uncensored to a large degree. A lot of freedom for the freaks. Caitlin Connors, you were the first like? Hell yeah. Weston, you're pretty big in China. What do you do in China? But how am I doing? I am doing good. I'm excited for these stories. These are going to be cool. We got about 7 scary neighbor stories to read, and I always find those pretty interesting. Neighbors from heck. Can I say Miss Asian Homeless? Are you any of those combination of words? What'd you just walk into? Welcome to the shiz show. We got shiz flying everywhere. Y'all see Joel's KFC loud burp? Yeah, that's a very exclusive video. We don't want that getting out to the public. Let's keep that on the DL. I've never eaten KFC a day in my life, and I certainly haven't burped after eating it. It also may have been my greatest content to ever produce. I think I ended up having someone actually put it out on TikTok because I don't have a TikTok. Which, do you think TikTok would be good to create for like a narrator, like a spooky narrator boy? An e-boy? Spooky narrator e-boy? Do they have that on TikTok? Is it worth it? You have to go back to break. Well, I hope you have a good rest of your shifty shift. La da 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 da. I should do a collab with Mr. Nightmare. I know, it'd be lovely to get on his channel. That would be some... It's weird to me sometimes, actually, that people that are on Mr. Nightmare's channel, like, there's so many of them, you know? Which I imagine a lot of the views come from suggested. But I'm always just, like, baffled how those people don't just, like, trickle down to all of us other lowly narrators. You got your health insurance book today. Would I mind reading it? You know, I would be interested in that. I'd like to get some, is it some solid insurance, and is it expensive, is what I want to know. Also, it's amazing to me, anytime you're asking people about health insurance, I don't think I've ever come across anyone that's like had a really, really straightforward plan with, I mean, I guess most of them get through their employer, but me as a internet e-boy, Google doesn't, not a big fan of providing that for us, which I can understand why. But I'm definitely looking for some good plans, but also I don't really trust half of them because it's almost like, it just seems like the world's biggest Ponzi scheme of all time. E-boys, yeah, e-boys are for sure self-insured. Can I read your IRS letters? Isn't it weird? The IRS takes your taxes, and apparently they have a military aspect to them, like a policing force that can come to your house to literally physically arrest you if you don't pay taxes. Like, that's such a weird thing to me. Like, you imagine your accountant or whoever, H&R Block, very dorky, very silly kind of thing that everyone, I don't know, considers a sort of boring science, almost like politics, but then they also have like an entire side full of like hitmen and mafia boys to just come kick down your shit. Hand over your gold, peasant. Can I read your mind? Something about Ram Ranch, probably. What would I do if I found my doppelganger? Well, doppelgangers are a weird thing because aren't they like a sort of spiritual entity or something that you don't see, but oh, Sam, what's up? What the guck is up? Mother guckers. Yeah, who's joining up with the IRS squadron? They should send them to World War III. The IRS and the Men in Black. Wipe your memory. That would be a nice tool to have. Flash someone and they forget everything. Al Capone would, yeah. That's the crazy thing, yeah. Al Capone, the fact that he was arrested at all, it's like... I guess, like, back then, you know, it's like... Even then, it's like, or within the United States, the government's military is stronger than your strong arm boys, so... I've always found cartels down in, you know, Latin America and Mexico and all that to be very interesting to me because of how much power they actually have. Because one of the things that makes me so terrified of their actions is that, like, I remember seeing this one, my buddy tell me about this one video, and this is just a funny thing to talk about to like chill hip-hop music, but my buddy said he watched this one disgusting video where it was like they caught some guy, you know, drug bullshit or whatever. I mean, obviously, like, cartel, it's like I'm sure there's anybody can call themselves a cartel member. It was basically just a bunch of disgusting humans that caught a man for something drug related, injected some fashion of like medication into him to keep him from going into shock, and dying. Sorry, this is gonna get gross here for a second, but essentially like peeled off his face while he was still alive, just so that it would like torture him to that extent. Yeah, it was just really messed up to hear. I mean, I didn't even see the video, but it was just like so messed up. Hutchfab with the 2 says, love the vids, man. Keep it up. Thank you, Hutch. Thank you. But it's just like so weird to me when I think about the cartel and those types of gang members, is that a lot of their sort of, things that they do to people isn't even like necessarily religiously. Yeah, talk about a facelift. Yeah, it's not even like religiously motivated. Like I could see why. Like I can't. It's disgusting. But like you think about like hypothetically, ISIS or something in various locations of the Middle East, or just something arbitrary like that. Like their motivations for very heinous actions against other people, would be some, insane form of religion, to motivate someone to do it. So it's like you kind of like psychologically understand where their perspective is coming from to induce a sense of fear in the name of some deity or whatever, which is insane either way. It's crazy and it shouldn't happen, but like you kind of could see how like the insanity of religion could lead someone to violence to a degree. But then I think about the cartels, and I don't, do they have any sort of like extreme fashion of whatever religion they celebrate to motivate them to do certain actions, or is it quite literally just like one of the most calloused hearts you can come across to treat people that way? I don't know. It's I don't know much about cartels, really. I guess I don't know much about anything, but SHS friends, shout out to you, my friend. What's up? Wonka wonka. Hutchfab, you got back from Iraq, nothing to be worried about. That's good. Yeah, I mean, I don't feel worried. I ain't worried. I ain't scared. I feel like I'm more scared of like a big asteroid hitting Earth than anything else. Devil Ninja with the 2 says, love the vids, man. Listen all the time. Keep it up. Thank you, Devil Ninja. Welcome to the stream. Glad you're here. We're going to be kicking off in about 6 minutes. Money and religion make people do stupid and dangerous things. I would imagine so, yeah. It's crazy to think, yeah, money talks in all scenarios, and you can pretty much get anybody to do whatever you want with a little bit of green. Laura, what up? To be honest, does anyone know anything? I don't think so. I do not think so. I mean, like, obviously, some certain people are more educated on specific topics than others, but at the end of the day, I think most of us are relatively, I mean, if we just go about our conventional lives, I mean, or at least me, I'm going to use myself because I can't speak for anybody else, but unless I look something up and really dig deep into it, I cannot say that I know jack all poop about really anything. And I think sometimes it's kind of wise to take that perspective where you just have to accept that you're not always going to know something about something. And you also don't always, I don't always feel the need to take an opinion on stuff, though it's very tempting to like jump into something that's, jump into having an opinion about something that's controversial just because you can, and because like you've been kind of like, it's the hot topic or the hot button thing at that moment or whatever. You're a specialist in the Tanzanian affairs. Yeah, I hope you guys picked that up, and I'm sure you did. I said it like 4 times, but basically I think I was streaming it and I fucked up how I was saying like, yeah, Tanzania, and when it was really Tanzania, and I knew it was Tanzania the whole time, but for some reason I like thought to myself like, oh, it's just a country in Africa that I hadn't seen before, and so I just kept seeing it instead of like just going back and recording all of the parts where I messed up, which would have made logical sense because I went back and looked for them anyways. Wouldn't have taken me long. I decided that I would just try to create like an arbitrary word, Tanzania, and throw that into into the stories, and it ended up just sounding more insanely robotic than anything. Yummy bells. Sorry, I don't know. I'd say yummy, but it's funny. Hello, welcome. I'm like Mr. Nightmare, but consistent. Yeah. Though I am jealous of Mr. Nightmare. I mean, he it's pretty. I wonder if do you think he runs any other YouTube channels or anything like that? Because, I mean, to just have a YouTube channel where you just put out videos like 10-minute, like, imagine if I streamed me doing a 10-minute video. Like, the stream would be over in like less than an hour. I could actually show you how I edit and all that kind of stuff and still be done before I'm normally done streaming. But it releases like every 2 weeks or every month, and still just like kills it on views, which is good, you know what I mean? It's just, to me, I'm like, if you have all that spare time and you're doing that well on YouTube, I would hope that he starts, you know, some other business adventure, or maybe he just really likes his IRL job and keeps up with that. I don't even know. You need a Mr. Nightmare collab. You guys should just spam him on social media. Say, yo, fucking collab with @Let'sReadCreepy on Twitter, or Let's Read Official on Instagram. I doubt he even he does. Dude, on Instagram I looked at, he doesn't even follow anybody on Instagram, which I think is smart. I probably shouldn't be following people on there either, but I don't know. I really like interacting with you guys. I think it's just, it makes me feel human, you know what I mean? Like having a good time with everyone. I don't really like being this like ethereal, distant YouTuber that pretends as if though I'm not exactly the same as all of you. I mean, I look at the same memes. I jerk off to the same porn. You know what I mean? Like, we're just all a family. Isn't he sick? I don't know, dude. I don't know who's sick or not. I mean, maybe he has a cold. I remember there was a brief period of time where he had his mother had some health issues. God bless her, but I don't know. Joel is God? I am no God. I am merely an offshoot. An off-brand God. Scuffed God. Procrastinating on homework? You better get working. Oh, another minute here. We're going to kick it off. Thank you guys for being here. We're at 300 viewers starting out, so that's pretty dope. You watch some pretty weird stuff. Do I smoke marijuana? I did in the past, you know, and I have, and I would say that it's a much better substance by comparison to alcohol. Alcohol is addictive over time, and you can go through alcohol, and I think heroin are some of the only withdrawal symptoms that can actually, or, you know, substances when you go through withdrawal from it, meaning that your body creates a dependency for it, that your body can actually die from that withdrawal. And I've seen, working as a nurse in a hospital for a few years, 5 years or so, I've seen many people who did not tell us that they were alcoholics prior to having surgery. And then all of a sudden, a mixture of that, of their withdrawal and anesthesia, literally creates a borderline exorcist experience that you have with people where they just go insane. I don't even know how else to describe it. Have been there, Lazy Masquerade. Yes, there have been Lazy Masquerade and Let's Read collabs done in the past. I actually can't exactly remember which one, but the exciting part is that there will be another one coming up here soon, very, very soon, related to some UK stories, so I might even stream those. He's going to be reading one of those, and I think, you know, whenever I was coming up with that idea, I was like, oh, who else would be more perfect to be involved in that than Mr. Lazy Masquerade? So I'm pretty stoked, and he said he was on board, so hopefully we shall be getting that done here. But yeah, marijuana is much better than alcohol and much better than heroin, obviously. You smoke you poke smot. Nisha Chowdhury with the huge $25 Donarono says, going to fall asleep to the live. Sweet dreams, but the stories will show up in the dreams. Oh, yeah, I hope so. My voice will be sleeking around in your subconscious here soon. But thank you so much, Nisha. Thank you for that 25. That's really big. That's what she said. And that's also what I said. Thank you. Have you ever collabed with Dwomp Dweller? Yes, I have been collabing with Dwomp Dweller in the past, and he's been more than generous to assist me whenever I've been gone. A couple videos ago, I also did a collaboration with Mr. Southern Cannibal. I hope you guys enjoyed his voice as well. And that was actually an overdue collab where he had sent me that audio quite some time ago. Alright guys, well it is, as I have on the bottom right of the screen, it's read time. And we're going to switch over to the amazing, prolific Iron Cthulhu Apocalypse. Makes a lot of dark ambient stuff. Thank you, Chill Hop Music, for providing these dank-ass beats. Also, just let me know if the music is too loud or intrusive to your viewing experience. MEB with the 5 says, I got a plate full of chicken wangs, my warm bed, the first day of my vacation from work, and a stream from you. Yay. Well, thank you, Emmy. I hope you were enjoying those chicken wangs. And what kind of Iron Kalula, whenever he's in a tropical mood. Yeah, what kind of sauce you got on them chicken wangs? You know, it was really good. This place I went to had wing night, and they had boneless chicken wings as an offering for their chicken, and it was so good. It was so good. It was so nice. I mean, obviously that's part of the fun when you're eating a ton of wings and, you know, dealing with the bone, but sometimes it's just nice to get that concentrated protein power. Original Asherella with the 2 says, you know what I meant? I'm multitasking. Oh, no, that's right. I did. There's typos are more than welcome. Do chickens have wangs? Oh, yeah, they're very curly, I hear. Especially with barbecue sauce. They go great. Do you guys have a favorite type of chicken wing sauce? This music is booming. Chicken or female, so no. That's a good point. That's a very good point. I don't know these days. It's, you know, I was going to say it's 2019, but it's even more than that now. You never know what chickens are getting into. Do my videos from YouTube get posted on your podcast channel because I never see them? So the deal with YouTube, the podcast, is quite a large delay. So everything new comes onto YouTube, I want to say, probably a month ahead of time, to give or take. And then after about a month, 3 videos from the week, kind of equaling around 3 hours or so, will then be transposed over to the podcast, which I try to do podcasts every other week, depending on if I have a sponsorship or something like that. It might be more than that. But so those are Mondays around noon Eastern Standard Time that I release those every other week. And I just released one yesterday. So, and then I also once a month will try to promote the podcast through compilation videos that are of older stories onto the channel, which kind of upset people sometimes because there's stuff they've already heard. But I think it's a good way to promote the podcast. It gives me kind of a day to recuperate and get ready for the next thing. And then it also, those videos tend to do really well. They tend to, because they're quite a bit longer, they tend to bring in, it seems like YouTube kind of favors that, so it gets out to more people, more subscribers, and I get to have more friends. Aleda Alvion with the 5 says, can I send you my nightmares in art? Absolutely, yeah. And if you also want to join the Discord, we have a Discord link down below. There's quite a few Discord members here who can vouch for the awesomeness of that experience. I've got the Discord link down below, and basically there's quite a few channels for art, submitting stories there if you want, even though, as you can see on the top left of the screen, and I'll link below, you can send your stories to reddit.com/r/Let's Read Official is like the best place to get your stories to. Yeah, and follow Joel on Twitter, which is Let's Read Creepy, and my Instagram is letsread.official. Will I ever do a face reveal? Yeah, also, speaking of Discord, you can go on there and see my face. We got lots of pictures in the selfies channel as well. A lot of other beautiful folk hanging around in there, posting their pretty faces. Send me all your spoopies. K-Sing Production, welcome. Welcome, Dave. Hello. Alright, guys. Let's kick this off. Scary neighbor stories. Number one. What if I said that before every story? I'm sure that wouldn't be annoying at all. This is a story of something that my dad witnessed unfold when he was a kid in northern Texas. He was born and grew up on his family's farm until he was drafted to fight in Vietnam. In that neck of the woods, most of your neighbors' farms may be over 5 miles away, but the neighborly spirit of helpfulness meant all one had to do was ask and assistance would be given, without a second thought. There was an exception to that rule, however. The two landowners. Joel, is there a mod to link? I don't know if any mods are here right now. Jamie, I am going to make you a beautiful mod. Today you have the power. Use it wisely. Destroy the child. Dave, you got some scary story? No, neighbor story. Well, hey, submit that. Maybe you can make it into the next volume of scary neighbor stories. Oh, Jamie doesn't want to be mod. That's all good. No? Well, it's happening, and you must do it now. You have been selected. You have been randomly selected. The two landowners located to the north of his family's place had been at war since some said the Civil War. One farmer had been a loyal Democrat and slave owner, while the other was supposedly the head of a recently arrived Yankee family who was a supporter of Abraham Lincoln and the newly formed Republican Party. The Yankees were also wealthy and had purchased a large plot of land that the other farmer had his eyes on for some time. Like so many other families at that time and in that part of Texas, what started off as a disagreement over politics, the coming war would only serve to worsen. Upon the end of that bloody conflict and with the return of both men... That is interesting. I wonder if there are still... I guess this is an example of modern-day feuds and stuff. Cheyenne Dory Bob with the 5 says, got too busy playing Elder Scrolls, just now saw you streaming, glad I haven't missed anything. No, thank you for being here. Thank you, Cheyenne Dory Bobby. Dory Bobby. You want me to read it with a southern accent? Shit. Jamie has been chosen. Upon the end of that bloody conflict, and with the return of both men from fighting in it, those in the surrounding area hoped the differences between them would be squashed, but this was not to be. The bitterness that had always been there, seething just below the surface, would break free anew after a dispute over a property line sprang up. Josiah Campbell, the patriarch of the pro-Union Campbell clan, had purchased a 500-acre piece of land just before the war had broken out. This large parcel adjoined to his... Someone will have to keep track of my mistakes because I can already feel them. I feel them a-coming. Nice. Thank you, Jamie. Jamie had created a link there for joining. Hopefully that all works as well. This large parcel adjoined to his neighbor to the east, Samuel Johnson's property, but it wasn't until 1883 when Campbell began to put in fencing to keep his neighbor's cattle from encroaching onto his land did the already hostile relationship between the two landowners reach a new and dangerous boiling point. Multiple face-to-face confrontations would ultimately lead to a court battle in which Campbell would come out the victor. If Campbell believed the court's judgment would be the end of the argument between the two families, he would be proven terribly wrong. Many more disagreements, some of them over insignificant things, would arise in the following generations. One of the more notable involved Josiah, now an octogenarian grandfather. Well, what does that mean, octogenarian? Did I even say that right? That's some fancy words they got there.
Octogenarian.
All right. A person who is from 80 to 89 years old. Oh, okay. The octogenarian is making his TV writing debut. It's very specific. I don't know if I'd want an 80-year-old writing TV. Maybe I would. Honestly, I feel like old people are not represented. I've said this before, but I feel like old people are not represented enough in media. Like, you see music videos and all this, it's got like 25 million views, hip happen and music. And I'm just like, or you see movies just about young, sexy people, and it's like, I get it, sex sells, but sometimes I don't know, sometimes I just want some lovely stories about getting old. Crystal Velarde with the 20 says, Haru, I'm about tired as it gets, but I missed you, my dude. How the fuck have you been? I have been really good. Doing super well, even better now with you. Thank you for your generosity, seriously. And I know the feeling. It's good to get sleep. I found this new sort of sleep medication. It's not necessarily like a full-on prescription medication, but it's something that I'm sure a lot of you have taken melatonin before, but from what I hear, melatonin is probably something people don't want to take because since it's a hormone, it's something that you'll need more and more of. And I guess that people discuss like L-tryptophan being what makes you tired from consuming turkeys and all that kind of stuff. But apparently that's something you can kind of get in a sleeping aid online. A YouTube channel I enjoy watching had made a suggestion. His name is Dr. Berg. Super, super smart guy. Very big advocate of intermittent fasting, low carb diets and all that kind of stuff for longevity. And I learned a lot today about insulin, the presence of insulin in fat stores, and also the presence of HGH and muscle growth and fat burning and all that kind of stuff. So definitely worth looking into if you guys are having difficulty sleeping, unless my voice gets you to where you're trying to go. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now. Christopher Lass with the 10 buckaronis. Thank you, Chris. Thank you. Read the stories, bitch. I'm trying. You know me, I get very easily distracted with... I've got attention deficit dangler. a dangling attention. One of the more notable involved Josiah. One of the more notable involved Josiah, now an octogenarian grandfather, in which a stray bullet would come very close to striking him. Although most in the area assumed Samuel or one of his sons fired the bullet, it could never be proven. Incidents similar to this would only serve to keep the bad blood between the families just hot enough. My family's part in this drama is small. Financially and politically, our lot was similar to that of the Johnsons, a native Southern family arriving in Texas during the Republican period from Tennessee. However, that's where the similarities ended. From what has been passed down through the generations, Samuel Johnson and most of his offspring were ignorant and always looking for a fight. One specific story claims that my great-great-grandfather even stopped attending church because of them. Their attempt at avoiding any involvement in this whole mess was well fought, at least until a quiet morning in 1962, when they would be pulled into it whether they liked it or not. It was a warm June morning. My dad and his family went to church like usual. Everything was normal that day except for the conspicuous absence of the Campbell family. The section they had been sitting in since the building of the church was glaringly empty. Because of this, mutterings quickly began to spread throughout the congregation. The Johnsons sat quietly in their own section, doing their best to ignore the rumblings around them. The Reverend F and F with the 5 buckaroony says, dude, I've been listening for years. My all-time favorite proceeds, sir. Thank you, F and F. Thank you for the mother F and F and donation, my good friend. Crystal says, I effed up my sleep schedule because I got first shift job and just don't know how to take my ass to bed at night. It really shows when I have to get up. Oh yeah, one of the things that they were discussing in the video that I watched, besides like the L-tryptophan supplements and things like that, that don't mess up your hormones, you should look him up, Dr. Berg, just Dr. Berg Sleep, you'll find him on YouTube. It's really interesting, but basically like, obviously, exercise is good, just going on a nice walk before bed. Reading really helps your mind to, like, slow down. And then also they'll demonstrate some sort of, like, light massaging to certain cervical aspects of your spine and neck. Help to kind of relax the parasympathetic nervous system, which then helps you just kind of, like, just feel everything start to shut down for sleepy time. And stretching in general is just something that can make you feel really good. So check him out, Dr. Berg Sleep, and he's got a lot of other interesting health stuff on there as well. And greatest part about him is that he gets to the mother effing point, unlike me, who gets a little distracted with things at time. Roxy, you're going into labor, or if your body's just freaking out. Oh boy, yeah. Yeah, I guess I only really know about contractions a little bit, but if you feel you're getting there, I hope you got some family to support you, and I highly suggest taking those signs as serious. I remember watching an episode of Louie, and his sister came to visit, and she was pregnant. She's real loud and stuff, and all of a sudden she thought she was having a borderline miscarriage or something, not to bring up that word or anything like that, but basically she thought like she's gonna lose her baby, and then they're rolling through the ER and it's this really chaotic scene. Then all of a sudden she just lets out this giant fart, and then she immediately felt better, that it was just gas that was causing all of that. So that was hilarious. If you never watched Louie with Louis C.K., it was his essentially his television show. After this, he became popular from stand-up. It was on FX. It was funny as shit. It's so funny. The Reverend waited, but was eventually forced to go on with the service. On the drive home, the family passed the Campbell place expecting to see the bustle of the daily work and those involved in doing it. However, not a soul was seen, and the house sat still, showing no life within. My grandfather dropped the woman off at the house, and he and my dad returned to the Campbell place to take a closer look around. As they approached the home, the uncomfortable silence was broken by the slamming of a screen door. It had been left open and free to swing in the wind. The noise brought out the livestock, and their incessant mooing showed they had yet to be fed or milked. If this was truly the case, something had to be very wrong inside. My dad ran into the barn and fed them quickly and rejoined his dad at the door. They were able to enter with no problems. Unlocked doors were still a common practice in those parts, but that would soon change. There were no signs of life in the back part of the house. My grandfather called out but received no answer. If anyone was still alive inside, the creaking of the stairs as they climbed them certainly would have caused them to stir, but no one appeared. The two men separated as they reached the landing, each heading for different closed doors. Just by chance, my father was the first to discover the fate of the Campbell clan. Two small bodies laid still. In their little blood-soaked beds, John Jr. and William had been shot repeatedly as they slept. Upon taking in the sight, my dad rushed from the room, battling the urge to throw up. He was still just barely out of childhood himself, and yet to have witnessed something so horrible. His father was just about to enter the bedroom. Fuck, this is getting heavy. Family feuds. They may know the story behind butter socks. I don't even think I know the story behind butter socks. You guys will have to come up with your own lore. There will be many myths and legends surrounding the Buttersock cult and its beginnings. No one knows. No one can look back more than a year. His father was just about to enter the bedroom of the Campbell parents when his son came rushing from the room. Although no words were exchanged between the two, my grandfather knew what horrors the room behind him likely held. The scene in the parents' room was much like that of the children. Both elder Campbells laid motionless and bloody in their large Victorian bed. They had both been shot with a shotgun to the head, but John Sr., the patriarch, had been shot several more times. So much so it was impossible to definitively identify him. Despite this, there was no doubt the heinously slaughtered man was indeed John Campbell, and the man behind the shotgun was his lifelong adversary, Matthew Johnson. The ill-tempered Matthew's absence from this morning's service was almost as noticeable as that of the Campbells. The manhunt that followed didn't last long. Matthew's body was found hanging in the loft of the barn, and the death was... Matthew's body was found hanging in the loft of the barn, and it was clear that he took his own life. The motive behind the terrible act, more than likely, was the latest in their long string of court battles. This time the Campbells found it necessary to bring Matthew into another expansive and drawn-out case over the water rights along the long-disputed property line the two families shared. After more than 3 years of fighting, the Johnsons would ultimately come up on the short end of the stick. What would have been just another link in the chain that had connected the two farm dynasties for over 100 years proved to be the end of the Johnson family's hold on their land. It was later discovered that they had been barely managing to keep their heads above water from harvest to harvest, and John Campbell's suit and their eventual loss was the final blow. Once Matthew was... We are the Buttersock cult. Say Buttersock 3 times while clicking heels together and boom, your socks will be filled with butter. Hey Lils, welcome. Once Matthew no longer had anything left to lose, The century-old bitterness between the neighboring families broke free and gave him the justification many of those before him lacked. His family told the sheriff all she claimed she knew. Her husband had stepped out just after sundown, only to return 2 hours later with a substantial bit of blood on his shirt. She stood by their bedroom window and watched as he burned them. Fuck. Does anyone love the stories and the weekend? Hell yeah. Is it the weekend? What day is it? It's Tuesday, right? Well, you can love the weekend either way. And also, we're already at about 500 people here, which is pretty dope. Thanks for being here. Click that likey button if you haven't already, and enjoy the show. She stood by their bedroom window and watched as he burned those same clothes. After he finished this, he came to bed and went to sleep like normal. However, the next morning when she awoke, Matthew was not in the bed next to her. She searched the farm, but he was nowhere to be found. The family went to church like normal because she feared their absence would cause people to talk. She swore she had no idea what her husband was going to do when he left that evening or what he had done when he returned. It was clear he had done something dark, but his target. It was clear he had done something dark, but his target wasn't known. The remaining members of the Johnson family held an auction for their few valuables and vacated the property soon after. Dad said that they were rumored to be living in the Wichita Falls. Poopy. Poopy doopy. I can't read. Dad said that they were rumored to be living in Wichita Falls and Matthew's wife had remarried, but once he went off to war, he never heard anything else about them. The ownership of their farm, It looked like farm, but it was former. You just binged Dirty John, and who's Dirty John? The ownership of their former homestead and adjoining land was purchased by a big land company out of Fort Worth, who broke the land up into smaller parcels and sold it off to new buyers. As for the Campbell land, the place would sit empty for many years. The slaughter that took place inside, tainting the value of an otherwise beautiful home. That land, too, would invariably be broken up and become a massive housing subdivision when the area and all the remaining family farms were consumed by the nearby city. That's interesting. It's like a sort of an indirect history lesson there. Yes. Show on Netflix based on true stories of con man who was insane. Interesting. Weston, Weston, you shared a story. You were abducted by a USO, a unidentified submerged object. I don't recall. I believe the story, it was still kind of up to interpretation whether... Well, I guess, yeah, you said there was a time lapse. Oh, you know what you should do? And it could be a good or bad thing, but I believe that there's a type of hypnotism that can pull out, that people who believe themselves to have been abducted by extraterrestrials can do this type of hypnotism that sort of reverse engineers memories that otherwise were, for lack of a better words, submerged in our subconscious. And I don't know if that would be good for you or not. It could be a bad thing, could be a good thing, but sounds interesting, and they've done it, and maybe, perhaps, you could give it a whirl. Daniel Atalano with the 2 says, "Hey man, sorry I can't give more." No, that's all right. Thank you so much, Daniel. Thank you. Very much appreciate that. You probe them from the butt. It's so obvious. I should be a voice actor. I have a great voice. Thank you. yeah, there's a part of me that really, really wants to do that. I have a friend who works down in Texas and does voice acting with Funimation. And it sounds like a great time. Like, it sounds like a lot of fun. You're always kind of kept on your toes because you're trying to, like, audition and compete for different things. And that sounds really cool. But there's also a part of me that's sort of mildly terrified of moving to another state to pursue that kind of stuff. But hey, I guess that's life. You follow opportunities where they are. But I've been so blessed with this YouTube channel, and Jew it, Joel. I'm trying. So blessed with the YouTube channel and the podcast and its success thus far that it's just I almost feel like I would need like a catalyst of sorts. But it could be worth looking into for sure. Samantha, what's up? Hi, Joel. How are you doing? Hope your 2020 is going well. And yay, a stream to help me sleep from my tooth being pulled yesterday. Oh, no. Yeah, tooth pain can be very, very painful. So I hope I can lull you into a sort of anesthetic state. Daniel Adelana with the $1. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you. Texas is awesome. Next Goku voice? Spirit of Earth! Give me your power! I would really like to be like an evil anime boy. Hello. You think your powers can defeat me, Goku? Think I can? And then I fire a big laser out of my wiener right at his face. Goku never saw that coming. Goku, you never saw that coming, did ya? Brandon, if I could afford to move to Portland, Oregon for writing opportunities, I would. I remember having one wisdom tooth pulled, and yeah. I remember back in the day I had all 4 of my wisdom teeth pulled. And it was achy for sure. I remember the one interesting part was when I came out of anesthesia, I was like completely aware. Like, it was none of that like funny stuff that you see on the internet. Like, I was just like immediately there, and I actually felt like I could drive at that moment, which was funny. And but then eventually the numbness like stuck around, and I just felt like I was constantly dripping drool from my face, and I really didn't like that. And didn't take any pain medicine, which was interesting. I guess I just toughed through it, saved it, and snorted it all later. Just kidding. But the one weird part is that once, basically, I guess they go in and they crush the teeth almost, and then vacuum them all out. And I guess there was a piece that didn't get vacuumed out. And years later, in the way back of my mouth on like the left side or something, I had kind of like I started feeling this strange hard substance, where those were pulled out. I was like tonguing it and stuff, and I'm like, what the fuck is that? And then after like doing it enough, I eventually like dislodged it, and I saw it was like a perfect little pearl of my old tooth. And I looked it up online, and they say sometimes, they don't suck out all the tooth material, and your body can literally like figure out how to get the foreign object out of itself by slowly moving it up over time. And I'm just like, what the fuck? The human body is legitimately insane. And that was, I'm thankful it didn't get infected or anything like that, but it was strange. Jay Lynn with the 2. Thank you, Jay Lynn. Sorry, I shall move on. Dump the cherries. What's up? Mackinac. That's a cool place. Yeah, they crushed my teeth and snorted my teeth into. That would have been hilarious. You wake up and they just got like a plate. Is that cocaine? They're like, no, it's your teeth, man. Shit's fucking fire. I want to do some surgeries. I tongued the pearl. Oh my god. I just realized. Okay. Anyways, story 2. Moving on. The whole sad mess started in May of 2011. I've been living in a 2-bedroom house next to campus for 2 years. No girlfriend to speak of, and incredibly lonely. So when Rachel moved in next door, I was praying for a shot. I was so lonely, in fact, her 10-year-old son didn't scare me off. Being a tall, buxom redhead made her my dream girl. I say girl, but she was 30, a woman and almost 8 years older than me. Hellos and how are yous were shared each morning, and I did my utmost to keep her from noticing how creepy and awkward I really was. The way in which I fumbled over my words, as embarrassing as it was, didn't drive her away. As the months compounded, our talks became more personal and I less nervous. Before I knew it, she had asked me to take her out, and I agreed. I was still a poor student, but even with that, our dinner went well and we progressively drew closer and closer. Her son actually turned out to be a cool kid, and he and I would often play video games together. I did my best to not appear as if though I was trying to be a father to him, more of a friend, really. The situation Daniel with the 2 says, not done yet, homie. Oh yeah, thank you, Daniel. Ridley, you're going to donate $666. And Alfreda's going to donate 1,000. Thank you, guys. That would be some wild shit for real. I remember one time watching this guy Seagull, one of my favorite Overwatch streamers back in a couple years ago. He was donated $5,000 during a stream, and I saw that happen live. And he was just like so flabbergasted, he didn't even know how to react. He said his hands were like shaking. It's crazy. It's like crazy how some of these streamers, like, I don't know, it's insane. Simon says, I have horrible dentist anxiety after dentist broke a drill/dental tool in my mouth and drilled through one tooth wall into another, so I got examined and tooth pulled the same day. Ah, fuck. That is terrifying. Sorry about that. The situation did cause me to wonder why his father wasn't in his life. The possibility of him being dead did enter my mind, and I thought if I asked, it may bring up unresolved issues. The truth would turn out to be far worse. The good times went to torture when her ex-husband arrived unannounced at her house. Went to shit. What's like another word for shit? Not like actual shit, but like things went to shit. I said torture, but I'm like thinking, okay, the good times went to, I can't say hell. I mean, I could say hell, and I'm sure it wouldn't be a big deal, but I try to just like, you know, keep it PG-ish. The good times went to, let's see, went to hell, synonyms. Deflower, what the hell? Oh, I typed in go to hell. Why did I type that? Well, yeah, it just like gives it, like auto corrects that. That's really sweet. Oh, things really hit the fan. That's a good idea. Weston, you're 5'12". Shit, dude. Things really went to caca. The good things really hit the fan when her ex-husband arrived unannounced at her house. I wasn't there when he showed up, but the fight between the two clued me in. At the time, I was just waking up and heard yelling coming from across the street. I peeked through the blinds in time to witness him hitting her across the head and body. This instance would be the first of many and was the moment I knew what we had was over. Long ago, I learned the hard way to not get involved in an argument between partners. If you're lucky, you get out unscathed, but if you try to be the hero, the effort rarely gets rewarded. Even if she would have asked for help, I probably wouldn't have done it, but she never did. In fact, for the remaining time her and her son lived there, no words passed between the two of us. The ex would move in not long after and stayed until they moved out. A few times her and I would share a passing look, her eyes projecting an air of regret and apology, but nothing became of it. I made the choice to move in, just as she had. Many times more, I would witness the Fook. I made the choice to move in, just as she had. Many times more, I would witness the abuse, and at least once she knew I had. No one was going to save her but herself. I did have one more brief conversation with her son. He let me know his father had returned home from jail and the whole family was about to move across town to a trailer park. This talk was probably more of a way to let me know what happened than a friendly goodbye. I thanked him and said a goodbye myself. They moved the next week, and that was the last time I saw either of them. Despite the overwhelming feeling of loss I carry with me, the truth is she was always too good for me. An unconfident and shy boy was never a match for a beautiful young woman. At least, that's what I tell myself. No matter how brief our time together was, it was the best of my life, and I pray nightly I'll feel that joy again. That's kind of like a weird, sad story, jeez. Daniel with the 2 says, "Hey, get some Jack's or Subway or gas for your car, thank you." What's Jack's? I've never been to a Jack's. Is that sort of like almost like a Unimart from another state, probably? Is that a black chicken with antlers? No, that's it's sort of like a visual experimentation. I almost feel as if though I believe it's a hand coming up from like a grass mound, and I do believe that it's like supposed to be almost like a Wendigo's skull, but like it's like a hand grabbing a. I'll have to ask Robin exactly what it is. Robin Mikalsen, he's linked down below. He does pretty much all my thumbnails and a lot of the cool stuff you see in the stream here. I'm actually going to ask him to help me do like sort of an outro, running loop or images that I think would go really cool. I have this song that I want to play for you guys as at the end of the stream. I don't know if any of you guys have heard of the artist from Canada. Her name is Grimes, and she basically, I stumbled across her because I've always been sort of like interested from a distance of the character of Elon Musk. I'm sure many of you also have kind of like seen him existing within pop culture. And hey, yo sir with the 2 says Florida man stories. Yeah, I did have some Florida stories recently, and I'm sure there is a man in there at some point, so that could be considered a Florida man, but I definitely know who you're talking about. The old meth heads. It's weird hearing my non-reading voice. Yeah, it's kind of like go back and forth a little bit. But yeah, I recently heard that Musk had a baby with this pop star, sort of like dream pop genre named Grimes. She's very multi-genre. And so I went to listen to her music, or one of my roommates, they had it playing. And oh man, that song Genesis, careful of copyright. Yeah, I mean, like, basically I won't, like, after the video, all my streams get released on in a unlisted. All the streams get unlisted. I'll unlist it, but then put it in the streams playlist. So if you go to my playlist option, which should be on the top tabs there on my YouTube channel, you can click on playlists and click on streams and Q&A, and you'll be able to watch the old streams there if you ever want to hear other funny stupid stuff I say on those and watch me mess up and stuff. But anyways, I probably won't be able to monetize it if I play Grimes music. And I don't even know if maybe that part would actually be muted, perhaps. But I just really like it, and I think I've always thought it, like watching other streamers, they always have cool outro music, like a song to play them out. And yeah, that Genesis song is so dope, and I just feel like I can't help but share it. Also, I recently heard, I almost like in a, I don't know if you guys get like this at all, and I don't normally get like this, but when I find somebody that I like within the musical world, I do like a weird thing where I'm just like sort of obsessed with them for a little bit. Kill versus Maim is super good. Yeah, there's a bunch of them that I've been listening to, and they've been amazing. Just a lot of fun. It actually, I felt very inspired. I don't know why. Like I just felt very inspired by listening to her music, and it made me feel almost a strange sense of like depression. As weird as that sounds, but it made me almost think like I felt unaccomplished creatively, if that makes sense. Like I felt as if though I really really need like a furthered creative outlet, and music, seeing her create music and seeing how she does it with all like the interviews that I watched and stuff like that. And she was on a few different radio shows where she was doing it live, and I was just like, that looks like so much fun. That looks like so much fun. Um, and I don't know. I really wanted to jump into it, but anyways, how's this long as the stream been on? It's been on for an hour and 6 minutes, and probably will be going on for another hour or two here, just kind of dinking around talking about nonsense. But I'll get this story out of the way, and you know, I'm okay answering any question. But anyways, like so I dug into her a little bit, and then I, came across some really strange drama. I forget what the channel's called, but it was a funny guy who it's just funny to think of me as like a grown ass man looking up, gossip about like some pop star. I think initially I was sort of like, I had like this little crush that I developed on Grimes, and then I was like almost like, oh my god, like imagine being a pop star, and then you freaking marry a billionaire man from the future in one Elon Musk. And then I started like just, mildly obsessively digging into like information about their lives, which is so strange to think of how out there it is. You know what I mean? Like once you become rich and famous and stuff, like everybody wants to know about you, and there's info out there that literally exists on Wikipedia that you can just look up. And one of the things that was just really strange to me was this odd interaction that she had between another music producer and, star named Azalea Banks. I don't really know much about Azalea. I don't listen to her music, but Azalea had posted all these various things on her Instagram story about essentially how she had began a process of potentially collaborating with Grimes, who at that point was now dating Elon Musk, and living with him in his sort of Silicon Valley mansion and all that kind of stuff. Azalea Stanks. Yeah, I don't know. She seemed crazy. Everything she was saying seemed insane, but it was really funny and interesting and creepy all at the same time. And I'll get to that. But basically, she was saying that she came out to LA. She was going to do this like collaboration with Grimes. She then said that Grimes kind of like gave her the sort of slip on a bunch of different occasions, kind of blowing her off, and somehow ended up inside of the Musk residence. Is now like inside this elongated muskrat, yeah, or elongated musket. That's a good one. I call him Elon Muskington, and I do like the man. I find him fascinating. I mean, anyways. So like, I don't know. It was just weird because she said she was like pretty much trapped in their house, and Elon Musk. She said that like basically they brought her out there not necessarily to do a collaboration, but she was calling Grimes like a crackhead, and was Grimes was apparently Elon Musk was tripping on acid the entire time she was there for the weekend or something like that, and they apparently had brought Azalea Banks out to their estate specifically for some sort of strange sexual orgy type scenario. Not to get like too explicit, but it was freaking weird, you know what I mean? And she's saying all this insane shit, and it's like over the course of like a weekend and all this stuff, and I don't really think someone just like makes all this stuff up for attention, but I don't know how insane Azalea is. But then it led to all this other crazy follow-up stuff where then she started releasing screenshots of like a secured back and forth DMs between them, and all this really strange stuff talking about Elon, and then I guess essentially Grimes had revealed a lot of information about Elon and his difficulties with his business and investors and all this stuff, and how stressed out he is and how kind of insane it's made him. And then yeah, these weird parties that he goes to, or something like that, and just like, and then that led to, and then talking about his assets that he was hiding from, that I guess the IRS then investigated him and all that, kind of the FBI, and that he was hiding these assets and all this crazy stuff, which then resulted in him lawyering up, Elon having to lawyer up, and then like, denying even knowing her, or like briefly seeing her at his estate leaving in the morning and just like not knowing who she was, which was a strange follow-up to say you don't know who she is, to then like saying like, well, she was at my house or something, but I only saw her in the morning when she was leaving or something. Like, imagine you're so rich you just like walk out of your house with like your coffee and you just like, yo, who the fuck is that bitch? Like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, and then essentially she had to give like some apology notice so that she could eventually get her phone back. And she was saying that like Elon had her phone like tapped, and I don't know, it was just all this like insane, like the transpiring of events. And then I came to the conclusion, or I'm just like, and I posted on Twitter, I'm just like, you know what, you dig into people, you want to know everything about them, you don't always agree with their opinions and all of their crazy, insane stuff that they do or say, and you're different. You're different people. Like, it's impossible to be this, hope that the people that create the art that you like to be exactly who you want them to be. Like, if you like my videos and fall asleep to them, or the stories, or you just like my voice, whatever, like I'm never gonna be the person that you imagine me to be. You know what I mean? It's just a literal impossibility, a fantasy in our head. But anyways, I struggle with that too, because I'm like, so then eventually I just came to the conclusion where I'm like, listen, you got to separate the art from the artist, and that's what I'm doing, because I freaking love her music, and but all of the weird stuff that went back on in the sort of behind the scene, and a lot of her interviews, she seems really fun, like a really, really fun person, Grimes, that is, and it's just weird to hear all this like strange, when Let's Read turns into a drama channel. I know. Hopefully that doesn't come back to bite me or anything like that. But I just found it fascinating. It was so weird. It's so weird because all I was imagining, because the fact that it led to a sort of legal case on Elon Musk's end and Azalea Banks' end, where they had to like, they were subpoenaed to like testify and stuff in court. Like, what the fuck? Because of just like apparent, hey, Axeman, I'm exactly the butthole you thought I'd be. Yeah, Axeman has seen me IRL, and I was a big old butthole, big gaping one. And it was just, yeah, it was very fascinating and very strange. And I don't know. Oh yeah, what I was gonna say is, like, I was just imagining young Elon, 19-year-old Elon, like typing away on his at 4 a.m, drinking his like 5th Red Bull as he's typing up some code, because one of for his mapping business that he was trying to like get out there, which he eventually sold to make a ton of money to then begin PayPal and all that kind of stuff. With his before he got the hair plugs and before he became anything of wealth or anything of that nature. Like, I just imagine, like, I don't think 19-year-old Elon ever imagined that he would have not only become a billionaire, but also been involved in some sort of strange drama triangle with some random Instagram pop stars, you know what I mean, who are mo money, mo problems. Is a very astute observation from the late Biggie Smalls. I don't know if that's true or not, or maybe it's, who says that? Let's see. Mo money, mo problems. Who says that? It is the Notorious B.I.G. So I was correct about that, and I can concur, Biggie. I can concur. All right, enough bullshit. What the fuck am I talking about? Lils, thank you so much for the 5. Says, love your rants. Yeah, I don't even know. I don't even know, bro. Holy shizzle, manizzle. All right. Story number 3. Yeah, we're going to get back to the reason you're all here. Has your neighbor... it says kill, but I don't know if I want to say kill. What does it matter? It doesn't matter. I think I've said killed and kill in a lot of videos and haven't had much issues. I think YouTube's kind of eased up quite a bit. When's the face reveal? It's on Discord. You got to get there. I should sing Fergalicious. Fergalicious. So delicious. Has your neighbor ever once tried to kill you? Mine did. Want to guess why? Because my dog defecated in his yard once. Once? Yes, once. This dude has been nothing but trouble since I moved in. He would strut around without a shirt on in summer and occasionally flex and then look around to see if anyone was watching. You would think a guy trying to appear as macho as possible would be a man's man, but this was not the case. Anything that required any real physical labor, except for lifting weights, was done by his wife, a woman who was maybe 110 pounds, soaking wet. I may have given him a pass on the lawn mowing. Maybe he had bad allergies, but that wasn't it. They owned this ridiculous, jacked-up truck with an annoyingly loud exhaust, and you know who did all the maintenance on it? The wife. She had to use a stepladder just to get in the thing. When I realized he was just something to look at and had no bite behind his bark, any fear I may have had of him faded away. Enough of the small talk, though. The point of this whole post is what happened one quiet Sunday morning as I stepped out to get the paper. 9 times out of 10, my wife's little furry rat of a dog is actually pretty cool. Follows me out of the door when I go to retrieve it. This morning was one of the 9, and while I searched the fading darkness for my paper, he pranced off to the grassy area alongside the driveway to relieve himself. I thought nothing of it at the time. It's something that happens occasionally, and when I notice he does, I return from the house with a bag to pick it up. Not even I like dog. Oh, I see. Mini Bear with the 5 says, I accidentally threw up on my boyfriend during oral, and he was okay with it. Now I'm wondering what kind of sick stuff he's into. What should I do? Oh, yeah, that may have opened up a very dark can of worms, I suppose. Or created a very strange fetish, I'm not sure. Garrett Wiseman with the 5 says, then Elon Musk said, Azalea Banks, let's not meet. Dude, I don't know, after watching all that stuff with Azalea Banks, I'm just I don't know how these pop icons, do they start off insane? Do they actually start off, completely self-absorbed crazy people, right from the get-go, and that's, who the producers and, all the record labels, look for when trying to, recruit artists and that kind of thing? Because where are all the normal people who make, record hits and stuff like that, where they don't go onto their Instagram and say just some wild ass shit, you know what I mean? You gotta separate the fart from the fartist. This is very true. It's gonna waft in the fart. Don't look at where it came from. What happened to Azalea Banks? Presumably Elon sent her to Mars or something. I don't know. It's government robots becoming self-aware. Dude, I have heard... Dude, if we can... hypothetically, we can make clones. You know what I mean? If we can make clones of lamb and monkeys and sheep and stuff, I see no reason why we wouldn't be able to make clones of humans and then specifically cater them around exactly, what we want them presented, to present to, their target audience. Obviously, it's a little insane. JMO trying to with the $2. Give me that dab up, dab up. Hell yeah. We're at 600 viewers. Thanks for being here. Grimes is pregnant and she showed her boobies on Instagram. Yeah, she did. Yeah, it was on. I don't think she can show. Well, she actually showed the nibbles on Twitter, which I thought was interesting. She's she's a great visual artist, and I've always been interested how in the world she is able to have so many hairstyles, even just for videos. I mean, I guess some of them are probably wigs, but I feel like that would take a toll on you a little bit. But anyways, I think you know who I think's a clone. I think Rihanna's a clone, and I think Bruno Mars is clone. And the reason I think they're clones is because I've never really watched an interview with them, but I just always feel as if though they exist, but they don't exist too much in the public light, which is smart. But I almost feel as if they also they came into existence by some sort of algorithm. You know what I mean? Like every one of their hits and stuff has been generated by an algorithm, and it was almost as if though Bruno Mars was pooped out of a lab, and then the next day was sing at the Super Bowl. I feel like he didn't really know who Bruno Mars was, and then all of a sudden he's right up there with Beyonce. It just kind of caught me off guard. Maybe I'm not super in the music scene or paying attention. And sorry, Bruno, if you're watching, I don't mean to call you a clone or anything like that, but I've got my suspicions. He has short man syndrome. Gucci is not a clone. Oh, Eminem might be a clone, dude. Not even I like dog feces in my yard, but I generally don't go Super Saiyan when I see it. They got to go somewhere after all. Wait, they gotta go... Oh. They gotta go somewhere after all. Anyway, after I found it, I returned to the house with my paper. I noticed out of the corner of my eye the yappy bugger was in the familiar stance, and I'd have to come back and pick it up. So I grabbed a bag and head for the door. This had to have been 30 seconds from dump to door, maybe. I reach the door, and before I can grab the knob, my neighbor comes banging on it. Not a kind knock either. This is 7:30 in the morning. Everyone else in the house is still in bed. So his loud knocking and yelling, yes, there was yelling too, made me angry before a word was even said between us. I open the door and he starts ranting about how my dog just took a huge one in my yard. I open the door and he starts ranting about how my dog just took a huge one in his yard. I automatically tell him to lower his voice, but he kept on with the yelling. I try to explain to him what I was doing. I even showed him the bag, but he continued. I push past the idiot and go to pick it up. When I find the pile, I see that it's actually well within the bounds of my property, so I get even angrier than I already was. Whoops. Oh, Birdman. Yeah, Birdman scares me. I know this sounds weird, but you know how Suge Knight? You know how Suge Knight was I don't know, wasn't he eventually arrested for manslaughter or something of that nature? But and then people think that Suge Knight was the one that sent the hit out on Tupac and all that kind of shit. Dude, Birdman, I feel is in a similar fashion, just like Suge Knight, where he's the top, tippity top of whatever record label, and has all of the lowers below him who he's given another chance. You know what I mean? Given money and given all this stuff, and will essentially do anything for him. And I don't know, man. It's a little spooky. What was some respect on my name? Oh, yeah. Oh, man. I love Young Thug, though. Birdman was in one of, he's... Young Thug was supposedly supposed to replace Lil Wayne or something like that with the Barter 6 and all that bullshit. But I fucking love I love Lil Wayne, but I also really love Young Thug. I just think Young Thug's so funny. And I like his music too, especially the Barter 6 was dank as shit. I tried to explain to him what I was doing. I even showed him the bag, but he continued. I push past the idiot and go to pick it up. When I find the pile, I see that it's actually well within the bounds of my property, so I get even angrier than I already was. I dispose of it in a nearby trash can and turn to go back in. This whole time, I'd been swallowing my feelings, but then he made a big mistake. He threatened to hurt the dog if it ever came into his yard again. This was something I couldn't let pass. I may make jokes about the little thing, but my wife loves him like he's her own child, and I love my wife, so even if it was only a threat, I knew my wife would be upset if she heard it. I got in his face and started yelling threats back at him. When he began poking me in the chest with his finger, I reflexively pushed him away, and he fell right on his back end. He stared at me speechless with a look of shock on his well-moisturized face. Now that he'd shut up, I assume he got the point, and I could finally go back inside my house. Foolish thought. Let's breed. Oh my god. Future and Young Thug, my guys. Yeah. I didn't Future have a new album this year? I haven't heard it. It's weird though, because like, since music doesn't really exist on like a sort of like centralized system of like I mean, it does exist on the radio, but like not a lot of people, especially myself, I don't listen to the radio much anymore. Other than whenever I don't know, my Bluetooth cuts out and it goes to like classic rock, and I'm like, fuck it, I'll listen to classic rock on the radio. But like anything new, I feel like you're not going to catch anymore. It's almost like you have to find it on YouTube or whatever, and it almost like ends up creating a lot of like, rather than any like massive artists, it ends up creating a lot of like big, like a very diverse audience of artists. Spotify, yeah, I don't have I have Spotify, and I post my podcast to it, but I don't use it, and I feel like I should. I foolishly thought that was the end of it, at least for the time being. However, less than 2 minutes later, he starts pounding on our door again. By now, my wife had awakened and was in the kitchen asking me what was going on. I forgot to mention, this whole time that furry bugger was barking his head off. My wife picks him up to calm him down, and I storm to the door, ready to strangle this idiot. When I yank the thing open, the psycho is standing there with a gun and actually takes a shot at me. Just by a hair, the bullet zips past my head and comes incredibly close to hitting my wife. How he missed at that near of a distance, I don't know, but I'm incredibly thankful he did. I slammed the door closed and expected more shots to come roaring through, but none came. I ran for the phone and saw my wife had already called the cops. They tell her that there's been a few calls from the area and cars had already been dispatched. They show up and we tell our side of the story and show them the bullet in the wall. The guy couldn't deny he'd fired a gun. The proof was right there, and a few of the other neighbors had made complaints about someone shooting, so they put the cuffs on him, and we watched as they took him away. Later in the day, his wife came over and apologized to us for all the problems. I've never had a problem with her in the first place, and told her so. She thanked me and let me know that they were going to be moving. The truth of the matter was, they couldn't afford the house anymore, and with what he'd just pulled, they were going to need all the money they could to get a hire a lawyer. She didn't say much else after that, just apologized once more and left. Less than a week later, they were gone. It wasn't long before another family moved in, and they've actually been great neighbors. Although the entire comedy of errors was what it took to get rid of him, I'm still not sure my wife and I, almost getting killed, was worth it. Alright, this story kind of confused me, because it's like, if a guy fired a bullet at you, potentially to kill or maim you, wouldn't that be like played out in a sort of, He seemed awfully forgiving about the whole situation. But not only that, like, wouldn't the legal system essentially charge this guy for, unless he didn't report it, which would be insane of both of them, and presumably the wife would have reported it. But I feel like they would have said he tried to shoot me and kill me, or whatever, and then that would go into attempted murder. I don't know. That story doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Does anyone here make music or anything like that? And what program do you use? I briefly had some experience with Fruity Loops, trying to make some dank beats, but I kind of gave up on it quick. But I'm hoping to get into, what's the other musical program you can use? I forget what it's called, but I think it would be so satisfying to make music. And I don't know if anybody else here does it, but that would be cool. Yeah, FL Studio, yeah, Fruity Loops is the one. You make music on SoundCloud? Like there's a program on... No, I mean like the program you use to make the music, not like the publishing platform or whatever, but yeah, what do you use to make the music? Wolves fan, you want me to post my crazy neighbor story? Absolutely, yeah, post it on the Reddit, label it as such, or whatever other details would be pertinent. That would be cool. Your homie makes you beats? Oh, okay, so you just rap over him and stuff. The Hiroshima story at the end of the last video was fucking... Yeah, Mr. X Dreams was featured in that too, so you should definitely check out Mr. X Dreams if you liked his voice, because he's one of my favorite people, and we actually did a charity stream for him and his mother, who had cancer at the time. Unfortunately, she has since passed away, but that whole family was incredibly thankful for everybody's generosity, and it was great. It was just a great thing to bring everybody together, and I'm really thankful for you guys to have been there for him in that tough time. Freeze a rapper of gifts. No money, Mo E-Kids. Oh, this is true. Drum Studio, okay. Logic. It might be Logic that I'm thinking of, but I feel like there's another one. Music programs. Ableton. That's what I'm thinking of. Ableton. I think that's the one that I'm gonna get. Can I read sheet music if there? So there's a browser program called Notify. I cannot read sheet music at all. I briefly tried to do some piano. I feel like I give up too fast on music, but it's always because I'm trying to do it on my own, and I almost need you just need direction. Rapper than blunts. Start with GarageBand. If you want to buy a program, try Cubase. Audacity. Do you make music in Audacity? I thought you just kind of or do you just use Audacity for different things? Pro Tools. It's pronounced Fry, Joel. I'm sorry. I've said it right in the past, but I read that wrong. Friday. All right. Story 4. But if you guys make music, definitely hit me up in Discord or something, because I'd love to hear how the process has gone, and if you've created stuff. I mean, I just think that would be so satisfying to make some cool shiz. I had a female neighbor as a kid. Her family was a little odd. They do very unsafe things, like chuck throwing stars at each other. Normally the stars never struck one of them, except for this one time when the girl threw one at her younger brother and it stuck in the back of his forearm. It wasn't really deep, mind you, but it still was deep enough to not fall out when he moved the arm. Instead of freaking out like any sane 10-year-old would, he laughed and pulled the thing out. Rather than calling it quits for the day, he threw it back at her. For a while I thought it was because they were half Japanese and that's just what they did, but as I grew up I realized that They were just crazy people. When I was 16, the girl and I started messing around. I'm not sure how it happened. One day I was hanging out at their house and I realized I was attracted to her. Not long after, we happened to be wrestling around with each other and she pinned me down and began kissing me. It was all uphill from there. Some days we'd only touch one another's bodies, and some days it was full-blown you-know-what. We'd been full-blown you-know-what? I don't... God damn it. It went all the way. Yeah, I'll just say it went all the way or some shit. Doink dad. Doink father. Some days we'd only touch one another's bodies, and some days it went all the way. We'd been doing our best to hide what we were doing, but one day her older brother found out and decided to torture me for it. I never could get a straight answer from her on how he found out, but he had, and that was all that mattered. When he first approached me, I lied, but he saw right through me. Next, I began apologizing, but he still said nothing. His silence was terrifying, but not as much as the knife he was holding in his hand. At that moment, I was standing roughly 10 feet away from him. I eventually ran out of things to say, and we just stared at each other. The long seconds started to get to me, and I yelled at him to say something. Instead, he smiled, raised his hand, and threw the knife at me. I instinctively cowered and covered my head, but it sailed above me and hit the wall. There was no way I was going to stick around and become a pincushion, so I fled across the living room. He kept up his silent treatment. It was clearly working. I stopped to turn to look and see where he was. I saw him bend over and pick up the knife. When he'd seen I'd stopped, he threw it. Again. I saw what he was about to do and ran out the front door of the house. I didn't stop this time until I was inside my own house. As I ran into our living room, my mom stopped me and asked why I was running. It wasn't the first time I'd come running into the house, but I must have been horrified looking. I very nearly blurted out, but remembered what had initiated the chase in the first place. Telling my mom anything about what I'd been doing, or even admitting I had those type of thoughts, scared me much more than having sharp things thrown at me. So I told her I was very thirsty and was running into the kitchen to get a Coke. I'm not sure she believed me, but let it go and I slipped off to the kitchen. Later in the day, my playmate called me to come over, but I swore I'd never go over there again, as long as her brother was around. She didn't know what had happened until I explained it to her. I hoped she'd get mad about how I was treated. Instead, she changed the subject and said she'd come over to my house. It was a little harder to mess around at my place. My folks were always around, at least one of them. I was kind of mad she didn't stick up for me and obviously still shaken from nearly dying, but she was able to take my mind off of all of that rather easily. We took the opportunity to make up when my mom stepped out for a few things, and we continued messing around any chance we had. I did stick by my pledge, however. I didn't step one foot in her house for the remainder of my time living with my folks. College came around in a few years, and other than small visits at holidays, her and I never saw each other after I left. I did run into her older brother during one Thanksgiving. Even though we were both adults now and many years had passed since our talk, the memory of it was still strong, and I expected him to chuck a knife at me any second. Why the hell was that guy throwing knives at them? I'm really confused about that. Okay, so now we are on story 5. Anyone know their Myers-Briggs? What's Myers-Briggs? Is that like a personality thing? It's my Discord name. Well, someone can link the Discord channel there. Maybe if Jamie's still hanging around there, we can invite them. Yeah, who brought a knife to the gun show? You're gonna join archery? That sounds sweet. My next door neighbor was the best you could dream of. She worked nights, and when she was off, rarely made a peep. Her little dog was a concern early on, but I would soon discover it was as quiet as its owner. I'd been at the complex for a year when she told me she found a boyfriend and things were going well. After that, I saw her even less than before and was more happy to sign another 12-month. After that, I saw her even less than before and was more than happy to sign another 12-month lease. Things proved to be too good to be true, however. Barely a month into my second year, things began to change drastically next door. Loud arguments were often heard through the walls, and the dog reacted to those badly. Reacted to these badly as I did. Loud arguments were often heard through the walls, and the dog reacted to these as badly as I did. The poor little guy barked his head off while she and the new love of her life screamed at each other repeatedly. I did attempt to ignore the racket for a couple of weeks, but would finally lose my mind and began banging on the wall. I was shocked that it worked, but only after the first. I was shocked that it worked, but only the first time. All the others after were ignored. This garbage went on for over 3 months, and after several visits from the cops, she showed up at my door to apologize. She claimed things were going well, just as she had told me prior, but after he moved in, his behavior changed. After that, it seemed all they would do is fight. He had hit her during one, and she foolishly forgave him. He'd sworn it would never happen again, but it did, and she kicked him out. Her hope was that he'd move on to someone else. However, he soon appeared at her door out of the blue, begging her to take him back. The cops were called, and she filed a restraining order. That was almost a month ago, and she hoped he was gone for good. From what I could see and hear, things had gone back to the way they had been originally. I went back to living a peaceful life, and I assumed so had she. Considering we had opposite schedules, it wasn't strange for us to go weeks without seeing or hearing one another, and I was happy for it to stay that way. Then something terrifying would happen one day as I returned from work. I pulled into the complex and turned to enter my section of the lot and was blocked by several cop cars and ambulances. It was a surprising thing to see, but none of my business, I suppose. I found another spot to park and headed for my apartment. As I neared my place, I noticed my neighbor's door was wide open and cops were going in and out. After what she'd told me, I assumed her ex had showed up uninvited. Upon approaching our building, another officer stopped me and informed me the area was closed. I let him know I lived in the building and asked what had happened. He couldn't tell me, but if I waited for a detective to come out, he'd probably have some questions for me. The cop said something over his radio, and a minute later, a guy in a suit came out of the apartment and took me aside. He only had a few questions, if I'd seen anything and the like. As the seconds passed, I got increasingly nervous and begged him to tell me what was going on. He paused and said in a very serious voice that my neighbor had been found dead in her apartment earlier that day. My eyes had to have looked like saucers to him. I was completely shocked and wondered how I hadn't noticed something so major. Before he could ask the question, I blurted out her ex's name. They were familiar with him, and I could tell from his demeanor he was their main suspect. He handed me his card and let me go. I turned to walk away, but stopped a few steps later. What's going to happen to her dog? The detective hesitated, and a sad look popped up on his face. The assailant appears to have killed him too. I'm sorry. I'm not sure why this angered me so much. Struck me as needless, I guess. The cops probably thought I was crazy, mumbling cuss words under my breath as I walked away. The following morning, I was browsing through the local paper online and came across a story about the murder. It explained that my neighbor was a week late on her rent and received a notice. When no reply came after 2 days, the manager visited the apartment personally. There was no answer, even after she knocked, so she let herself in and found the body. The detective was quoted as saying that they had yet to find her ex, and they believed that he had fled back to his original home in Lebanon. Not much information has come out since then. The ex-boyfriend is still unlocated and no other suspects exist at this time. I've moved on to a different apartment complex now, but for the remainder of my time in that one, things went back to business as usual. 2 months before my lease was up, new tenants moved in. This was a young couple with a 5-year-old boy. The noise coming from them was endless, and I was overjoyed when the time came for me to move. The place I'm now in is majority older couples, and the noise level is almost non-existent. As nice as things are at present, I don't believe I'll ever have a neighbor as good as her. Anytime I hear a bang on my ceiling or loud talking through the walls, I think back on her and how great of a woman and neighbor she was. Hey, KFC man. Wait, is that... Oh. Sorry, it's like hard to see over there on the other, because if it comes through Streamlabs, let me, whoops. Says, I've donated before, but I wanted to tell you that I discovered you while working as a 911 dispatcher. I was doing rotating 12s, 5 p.m. to 5 a.m., and your voice... Shoot, how do I... I think you can replay it. Oh. 5 p.m. Your voice is what I heard too. Open my brakes. It was soothing. Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for the 10 buckaroonies. And yeah, you're saying 5 p.m. to 5 a.m. shifts, and my voice is what helped you through the shifts, and it was soothing. Thank you. Yeah, I'm glad. I'm glad my voice can kind of be present with people and during night shift, because I know that can get pretty lonely out there. And KFC Man with the $4 says, I make music on GarageBand. Nice. That's awesome. Anthony motherfucking Esposito in the house. Making me twerk, Anthony. Making me twerk with the 50 big ones. Says, oh no, I missed the whole thing. I've been organizing the new house. That is okay, Anthony. I'm sorry that you missed it. This will obviously be out tomorrow, 7 p.m. Same time, same place. If you're not familiar with the schedule, not you in particular, but everybody, if it's Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And Anthony, thank you so much for the 50. Honestly, at that point, I need to give you some personal notifications to let you know when I'm up and live. But man, thank you. You're seriously so generous every time, and I really, really appreciate it. Yeah, Anthony has become my sugar dad. My sugar stepdad. Well, we still got 2 stories for you, so you were just in time to hear the last 2 remaining stories. Making me twerk. I don't even know if I could twerk if I wanted to. I mean, I've tried it before. You can hear me. Do you guys make that noise when you twerk? Is that like a twerking noise? Is that like pretty typical? I'm kind of gyrating, and I'm not trying to make that noise. It just kind of comes out of me when I hit the twerk. Making it hail. A hailstorm. You can help me. Send Joel Juice and Butter Socks to... That's all I sip on when I'm twerking here in the studio. Sounds like you jizzing. No, that's just my dance moves, man. Is he having a seizure? I thought it was kind of like the same thing, you know what I mean? ANSR. Post my tour. Yeah, I'll post my twerking vid in Discord, and you guys can give me some tips. Yeah, I don't want to throw my back out. That would be really bad. Honestly, that's why I need perfect form, technique. I need a year of really solid twerking technique, musical. As you guys can teach me music, I can make some music that I can, personally twerk to. Anthony. Whew. Sheesh. Every time, just twerking takes a lot out of me. Anthony with the 50, another 50 big one says, all good because I need some driving sounds. Also, thanks for the verbal twerk. All I picture with that noise is someone scratching their butt on a computer chair. Just... Thankfully, I got a stand-up desk here, so I got a lot of room to work with, Mr. Esposito. Mr. Esposito. Seriously, Anthony, thank you. Holy shizzle. Holy shizzle, my nizzle. That's a lot of drizzle. I'm going to strain myself. I really do have to be careful. I seriously... Especially as a kind of a newbie. Kind of a freshie. A fresh twerker. A twerkette. I'm kind of a twerkette, like just starting out, you know what I mean? So like I really shouldn't overdo it. I don't know what you guys think. I have to ascend the ranks of twerkhood. I have to go to twerk school. The twerk college in Ravendale. Do you think in Skyrim they have a twerk college? Because they had a magic college, and I feel like, dancing should definitely be a skill. Anthony with the 2 says Versa Dex Rock. Yeah, it's really nice. It just like lifts up, ready to rock and roll. I can hydraulically push it down if I so desire, but whenever I'm always doing... When you're kind of like a professional twerker like me, if you get stuck in a chair for too long, you get very tight. Your booty gets tight, and you just always need to be ready to twerk at all times. You never know when it's coming. KZ with the Canadian maple syrup doll hairs with 2 of those says great content. Keep up the work. Very big twerk content. We're getting I'm taking the channel in a new direction. It's gonna be just like a strictly twerking oriented. And Anthony again with the 5 says, okay, we'll have to go eat dinner later. Oh, okay, bye Anthony. Thank you, my friend. Enjoy your dinner. Enjoy it. And thank you so much. Seriously, I don't even know what to say. Valo Torres with the 5 says, my neighbor harasses me. He bangs on my walls when I walk. File fake complaints about my dog. He doesn't bark. Rings my doorbell late at night. What should I do? Yeah, that sounds like a move situation right there. I mean, obviously you can write counter complaints about, I guess, harassment. But I don't know. It's tough being confrontational because I know what you mean. It's almost like you need someone to go over there and just say, listen, man, I can call the cops for harassment or something of that nature. But honestly, there's a thing on Reddit, like reddit.com/r/legal advice or something of that nature. You could type into Google like legal advice Reddit, and you could kind of run that past people. it might not, it might not get as much. Oh, you have a 2-year lease. Goodness gracious, yeah. But yeah, maybe run it by them. Unless someone in here knows what the sitch is, you could talk to people on the Discord too. Jamie just linked that. Everybody's always open for serious discussions and the like. So you could brainstorm some ideas. Eat his ass. There you go. That is certainly one way to get someone to chill out. Thank you for that suggestion. So that might be what a lawyer tells you to do too. Just twerking in his doorstep. All right, story 6. 96 Meow Man 69 with the 2 buckaroonies says, hey there, Meow Man. What's Papa Loppin'? Ollie, your crush liked you back? Hell yeah. That's the dream right there. Anybody else got a crush that they're receiving mutual affection from? Or not. I'm not sure of how common it was in your neck of the woods, but most people I've discussed this subject with had at least one kid whose dad would beat his mom in his neighborhood. My friend Mike was that kid where I grew up. I can count at least a dozen times from memory that I saw his mom with a black eye or busted lip, sometimes both. It was rare that Mike or his brother got knocked around, but if it did happen, the abuse was more in the form of hard spanking or whipping with a switch. I grew up in a rural area in the South in the 1980s. Some folks were just starting to take abuse seriously, but whether it was striking your child or your wife, most didn't want to get involved. You have to realize a lot of the old church people live by the spare the rod, spoil the child motto, and many of them, among others in the community, still believed a woman didn't get hit unless they said something they shouldn't have. It was an odd time indeed, but many others in my community despised any form of abuse and said so as often as they could. My parents were some of those, but let me play at Mike's house and... Oops. Your crush turned into 3 kids. That's perfect. Like he just kind of like sort of broke into 3 pieces and formed 3 separate human beings. That's insane, dude. I thought like amoebas did that shit. Do. My parents were some of those, but let me play at Mike's house anyways. I'd see his dad every once in a while, and he seemed nice. He was quiet and not many words were exchanged between us, but I never saw any reason to be afraid of him, no matter what the adults around me told me. However, I did tend to be around later in the day after he had a few beers. Unfortunately, one day I would stay too long and see the man for who he truly was. That day, Mike and I had been playing a game on his Nintendo. I can't remember which one, but I got distracted and didn't notice the sun was going down. Back then, I could go anywhere in the neighborhood, as long as I was back by dark. I had lost track of what I was doing, and the next thing I knew, I was running late. Cell phones were not a common thing in those days, so my mom couldn't just pick one up and tell me to come home. I started to panic because I knew I'd be in trouble. I threw down the controller and said bye to Mike. When I got up to open the door, Mike's dad flung it open and asked me where I thought I was going. I told him that I was late and needed to get home. The entire time, I was respectful and even called him Mr. Hughes like my parents had taught me to do when speaking to adults. He replied by saying that I was just a stupid little rat because I was already there. The words were slurred as he said them and confused me. I looked over at Mike, bewildered. His expression showed utter fear. I wasn't sure what to say, so I said nothing. I stared back at Mr. Hughes, hoping he was just playing a joke on me. His next words were, "What's wrong with you? Cat got your tongue?" These were just as slurred, and he swayed as he said them. That's when I saw the beer in his hand, and I became very afraid. If I could have shrank in size and rolled away, I would have. With the knowledge I had surrounding how he acted when drunk, I was sure I was about to be beaten for nothing. His eyes were very glassy, and he looked around hoping for someone to speak, but we were too scared. "Well, if you're not going to talk to your old man, go outside and help your brother pick up the stuff out of the yard." Instead of looking at Mike when he said this, he was turned toward me. I could only assume he mistook me for Mike. The real Mike was sitting just behind me on the floor, well within range, but I guess he was so drunk Mike was invisible. Or maybe he was so used to seeing double, he thought that that was the case at that moment. I was about to correct him before I saw this as my way out. I did as he said, but rather than stop to help Mike's little brother, I booked it 3 houses down to my own and hid in my room. I got lucky that night. Neither of my parents heard me sneak in, and when they came to check on me, they assumed I'd been in my room the entire time. After weighing the pros and cons of telling them about what had just occurred, I chose not to. It wouldn't have achieved anything other than putting more unneeded stress on Mike and his family, so I let it go and counted myself fortunate. I'm not sure what happened when I left. Mike never mentioned it. The situation did teach me a lesson, however. I stayed away from his house, at least until his folks got divorced and his dad moved out. The family's life greatly improved after that, and Mike graduated valedictorian of our class. The man that would marry his mom later was an exact opposite of his father, and became the dad he'd always dreamed of. In the years since my childhood, the attitudes towards domestic violence has improved greatly. I, for one, can say I'm very pleased to see it. Children living in fear can never be a good or godly way to be, and because of this, I know I can be far more confident that my son and his group of friends will be less likely to find themselves in the same situation that I did. The jawline aids in crime fighting. This is true. If you're going to fight crime, you need a good jawline. There's like a specific ratio of jaw to line. Sweet melody, thank you. This jawline slices criminals in half. It's like the crimson chin. Also, we're at 700 people. That's a really solid night, to be honest. I don't know if it's because it's so late right now and everyone's available, but sometimes I start around 9 and it might only get around like 400, but I guess it all just depends on the day. Do I have any tattoos? I do not, actually. I have no tattoos. Like I've said before, like I have difficulties picking out a graphic tee from Hot Topic that I think looks interesting, let alone a permanent image that will forever be embedded in my body. But I've had some ideas for one, mainly tramp stamps, but beyond that, nothing really tickles my fancy. Anthony, welcome back. With the 2 says, super plus moist equals smoist. Dude, this stream is smoist. Anthony is smoist. Anthony with a 5 says, speaking of jawline, has anyone seen The Witcher? It's the new Superman. Yeah, new Superman has and The Witcher is an amazing jawline. And I always find it really funny that, like, whenever he found out he got the role as Superman, he was at home playing World of Warcraft. That's hilarious just to think, like, some super jacked, like, manly man with all of his jawlines just sitting at home with, like, greasy ass hair and probably a Pringles can and some diet soda, just dinking around with a war mage level 60. I'm very smoist. You think I'm leading a nation of people? Well, people of Let's Read Nation, lend me your ears, ears, ears. Do your best to separate the fart from the fartist. You're gonna toss a coin? Toss a coin to Anthony. My God. He's tossing a lot of coins on me right now. With a 5 says that, and he read the book and sounds just like the games. Oh yeah, what was his name? Zarak? Oh, Geralt. Yeah, Geralt is his name. I forgot about that. Yeah, that's sick. That's pretty cool. I'm glad that he could emulate that. I haven't watched the show yet. Hallie Long with the 2 says, I'm taking a bath. I can hear your neighbor crying. Uh-oh. Just, take a broom and bang on the ceiling. Say, pipe down. I'm trying to get comfy with Let's Read. Maybe he just needs... You should put on some Let's Read for him so he can chill out. Anthony with the 2 says, don't get that song stuck in my head. Honestly, I've seen it everywhere, but I haven't actually listened to it. Thank you for the donos. Oh, you know what was wild is, I forget who exactly it was, but it's on my Instagram. Someone got a tattoo of me, or of my, one of my designs. It's kind of like a design that they took from the Valentine merch on Spreadshirt, and kind of adjusted that to a Let's Read tattoo on their forearm, and I was like, holy shit. It was cool. It was crazy. I don't know. It was just crazy to think, like, to have such an effect on someone that they get a tattoo of you. Like, first off, thank you, and I don't know. It was just wild. D. Levine says, Mr. Let's Read, can we purge? That's, well, child, that's only once a year, and that's coming past. Your best thing to do is to train for the next purge. Isn't there? I haven't actually seen any of the Purge movies. Are they good? I've recently had to move to a new apartment because of a terrifying incident I had with another resident at my former one. He had become obsessed with me to the point that he tried to kidnap me at knife point and end my life. He's currently remand? Remand in jail. Crystal got that tattoo? Yeah, that was crazy.
Remand.
Place a defendant on bail or in custody, especially when a trial is adjourned. You know whose voice I love? If you've ever played Mass Effect, when you go into like your, Pokedex on Mass Effect, the guy's voice who like reads all of the information, the sort of encyclopedia of Mass Effect lore and creatures and stuff. Dude, his voice is amazing. I could just listen to that all night and probably pass out. There should just be a YouTube devoted specifically to like all the Mass Effect voiceovers and stuff. Am I one of the YouTubers that dropped out of high school? I am not. No, I actually went to nursing school in college, got my bachelor's degree in that. Was a nurse for... night, Daniela. Good night. Got my bachelor's degree in nursing and was a nurse for... I really stopped... It's about to be a year since I stopped doing nursing, and which is crazy to think about. And I started the YouTube channel a year after starting working at the hospital that I was at. And then I'm thankful that it took off. It was pretty buck wild. Obviously, thank you guys. Thank you guys for loving my shit, bro. For real, though. He's currently on remand in jail and will be for at least the next few years. However, his family is still living in the same apartment and they have threatened me and my family more than once. My mom decided we would be safer if we left that complex, and in the middle of the night, last week, we packed everything we could fit in our car and slipped away. I suppose it wouldn't be fair to end the story there, so I'll include all that I can remember that led up to the attack. My mom and younger sister had lived in that particular apartment for around 7 years before I moved in. I've been living with my dad in California since my parents' divorce. I liked living there and didn't want to leave my friends. The only real negative was that I hardly ever got to see my sister. We both missed each other a lot, so I made the decision to move to Arizona with her and my mom. The day I arrived, I noticed a group of older boys, about 18 or 19, hanging out in front of their apartment. One of them sat under a tree staring at me. There was something about the way he watched me that made me very uncomfortable. This was Brett, and he would be the boy. Jeez. Oh, Crystal, yeah, you got that tattoo. Holy heck. Wow. Anthony, the two says, okay, love y'all, bye. See you, Anthony. Enjoy your din-din. Yeah, Crystal, that was wild. Seriously, that may or may not have inflated my ego mildly. But also it was just like, thank you for that. That's great. I hope it's treating you well. Hopefully you get, people at airports like TSA see that and they're like, yo, that a Leslie tattoo? Shit, come on through. And they don't even look at you. They just, sure, maybe you got a bomb or two in your boots, but you got a Let's Read tattoo. Yeah, we don't have many stories of the black-eyed kids stuff. Those stories are weird because it's like, they're like, you can't tell if they're alien or supernatural. This was Brett, and he would be the boy that very nearly took my life. Our first few times to see each other, he kept his distance. He would take around a month for him. Shit, I keep fudging up. Alley Cat. Yeah, this is the last story. I'm sorry, my love. It would take around a month for him to introduce himself, and it was the circumstances that forced his hand. We ran into each other at the mailboxes. The surroundings pushed us very close together, and our eyes met. I still remember the feeling I had of indecision as I looked into his eyes. On one hand, he was a very handsome guy, but that deep-down feeling of mistrust was still there. He stared for a long moment before he finally introduced himself, and I did the same. He offered his hand, and we had a very awkward shake. That was the beginning of a short but eventually terrifying friendship. Our first day hanging out would be a fun one and no indication of how things would turn out. Brett remained shy for a little while, and on this day he wouldn't say much. I found myself making small talk to avoid any silence. He had told me about a wooded area close by that the other older kids hung out in, so I asked him to show me around. When we walked up, there were already 3 other kids, 1 boy and 2 girls, hanging out smoking. Brett and I stuck around for a little while and smoked with the group. By the end of that day, everything went well, and I'd made 3 new friends. He and I continued hanging out at the clubhouse, as the wooded area was called, and were getting along great until the day he asked me to be his girlfriend. The question caught me off guard. Honestly, although I thought he was good-looking, I wasn't attracted to him. We'd become good friends, and that was the way I wanted things to stay. I didn't want to hurt his feelings, so I tried to let him down as softly as I could. He took the no, much better than I expected, and quickly changed the subject, but did so in the most horrible way possible. He had seen a tabby cat walking about 30 feet away, and picked up a handful of rocks. He began throwing the rocks at the poor creature. Fortunately, he missed each time. I was naturally appalled by this and yelled at him. He kind of just blew me off and walked away with no one else to... Oh, fuck. Weston says, dude, I had a black-eyed children dream when I was visiting my dad in Texas recently. The black-eyed children were my brother and his girlfriend. Actually terrified of black-eyed children. Yeah, I mean, that would be a very spooky thing, because don't they ask, like, may we come in? You know, like they're vampires or something. He kind of just blew me off and walked away. With no one else to hang out with, I headed home, unsure of our friendship going forward. We ran into each other later in the week and tried to put would had hap what? We ran into each other later in the week and tried to put would had happened behind us. Oh, okay. We ran into each other later in the week and tried to put fuck. God damn it. You were a black-eyed kid when your parents drank? I don't get it. Do I have any kids or girlfriend or wife or fiance? I have, yeah, none of those things exist in my life. We ran into each other later in the week and tried to put what would have... I can't read this sentence, it's so weird. We ran into each other later in the week and tried to put what would had happened behind... Okay. We ran into each other later in the... Blah, 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 blah. We ran into each other later in the week and tried to put what would have happened behind us. Brett's brother and a few others were swimming at the pool and invited us to join them, so we did. I ran back home and put my favorite swimsuit on. I rejoined them and jumped in the pool. I was having a good time splashing around with the others. It was over 100 degrees that day and the water felt great. I had stopped to get a drink of water and was talking to one of the boys I'd just met. Out of nowhere, Brett ran up to the boy and pushed him into the pool. Everyone, including the victim, began yelling at him, but rather than apologize, he walked off just as he had in the woods. When I caught up to him later, I asked why he had done it, and he said he'd become overwhelmed with jealousy. He'd seen us speaking to each other, and I looked like I wanted him to be my boyfriend. A shudder of horror ripped through me when I heard this. If I was smart, I would have run away at that moment, but I felt sorry for him for some reason and assured him I had no intention to do that. The smile and look of sheer relief on his face should have been another red flag, but we've already established I'm not very smart. The rest of the day went fine, and nothing creepy would happen for another week. We had been playing Fortnite and smoking in a friend's apartment that afternoon when Brett tried to steal a kiss from me. This made me mad, and when I began to yell at him, he put on a sad face to make me feel... He put on a sad face. He put on a sad face. He tried that crap. It would have been... Wait, if this would have been... Where's the sad face sentence? This pissed me off, and when I began yelling at him, he put on a sad face. Okay. This made me mad, and when I began yelling at him, he put on a sad face to make me feel sorry for him. If this would have been the first time he'd tried that, I may have let it go. But he had tried just the day before in the woods. No one was around to see it then, but this day, a room full of people saw. That was the final straw. I told Brett off and left. I never intended to speak to him again, but he arrived at my door the following day like nothing had happened. I let him say hello before I slammed the door in his face. My hope was that he'd get the point and leave me alone, but within hours, the apology texts began and would continue for at least another week. I very nearly answered one just to tell him to leave me alone, but my sister convinced me it would only give him hope and he'd never stop after that. The messages eventually stopped on their own, and for the first time in almost a month, I had reason to hope it was all over. Things around the apartment soon began to quiet down, and there were no signs of Brett outside. Being cooped up inside so long was starting to drive me crazy. Therefore, after I scanned the area around outside my place and across the way for Brett, I deemed it safe and took the short walk to the mailboxes. I stepped out of the door, walking slowly at first, ready to run back inside at the first sight of him. But the closer... I stepped out of the... Okay. I stepped out of the door, walking slowly at first, ready to run back inside at the first sight of him, but the closer I got, the more confident I became. A few pieces of junk mail were all there, what the fuck? A few pieces of junk mail were all that greeted me. Feeling a tad more relaxed, I inhaled a lungful of hot Arizona. Okay. Here we go. Feeling a tad more relaxed, I inhaled of a lung. Holy shit, this is such a weird. Someone married at 18? Who did that? Feeling a tad more relaxed, I inhaled a lungful of hot Arizona evening air and made my way back to the apartment. I took a moment to tie my shoes. As I did, I thought to myself that this would be the perfect time for Brett to walk up, but when I finished and walked on, he was nowhere to be seen. I could see my door, and when I turned the corner, and then, out of nowhere, Brett stepped out from behind the wall and... Oh my god, I don't know why. As I go on, like my Brian, see, that's already bad. My brain runs out of, like, Joel juice, and I am tired. I mean, I'm not actually tired, but I think my brain is tired, because I can't seem to, like, flow with the sentences quite as well. Inhale that Joel vape juice. I could see my door when I turned the corner, and then, out of the near darkness, Brett stepped out from behind the wall and grabbed me. His hand quickly covered my mouth before I could scream, but when I felt the sharp point of the knife, I lost any will to. He shuffled us back behind the wall and told me he needed to talk to me. When we were safely hidden, he slowly pulled his hand away. I could tell he was watching and waiting for me to make any noise. However, the presence of the knife resting just under my neck prevented me from doing any more than whispering. He claimed he wasn't going to hurt me. He only wanted to talk to me and explain how he felt about me. The knife made me think otherwise. I asked him as quietly as possible if that was true. Why was he attacking me with a knife? This is the only way I could get you to listen to me. His reply was quick and confident. The shy and reserved Brett was elsewhere. The knife had apparently instilled him with a sense of power that he lacked without it. This realization terrified me even more and left me with little doubt he would use it if he felt a challenge to that power in any way. I decided at that moment I was going to do anything necessary to get away from this alive. Well, I'm listening. What do you want to tell me? When I said this, I used the softest feminine voice I could muster. I also relaxed my body to give him the idea that I was complying willingly. He said there were far too many distractions where we were. He was going to take me to the clubhouse so we could be alone. I stifled the chill as well as I could. The only thought I had was that he was going to take me there and kill me. If this was the case, I was going to attempt to get free whenever I could, even if I had to kill him to do it. He followed me. Fuck. If this was the case, I was going to attempt to get free whenever I could, even if I had to kill him to do it. He followed behind me as we walked towards the woods, pressing the point of the blade firmly against my spine the whole way. As we traveled, he told me about how he had fallen in love with me the second he saw me and how angry he felt any time another guy talked to me. I said nothing this entire time. In truth, I was doing my most to block out what he was saying and looking for my chance to get away. We drew closer and I could see a campfire burning off in the distance. My God, how long has he been planning this? Was my only thought. When we reached it, we sat together on a long log. He stared longingly. Okay, we're getting close. What would you want? A stalker? I've been stalked before, and it's horrible. I'm going to therapy now because of it. Yeah, stalkers are scary. If you ever, uh, feel the need to stalk someone, I suggest you don't do it, because it hurts people's feelings. When we reached it, we sat together on a long log. He stared longingly into my eyes and talked about how much I... Fuck, my voice is starting to go. You have colitis and wish you could poop. You know what I've taken recently, and this is, let's see, so Amazon... It's on Amazon, so if you guys use Amazon or have Amazon Prime, it is available on that. It's called Dr. Tobias multivitamin, and it's a really great vitamin because it's got pretty much, I mean, everything you could possibly want in there, but it's also got it has like psyllium husk in there for fiber, and it has probiotics and like enzymes for digestion. And I swear, not to be gross or anything like that, but like I swear, ever since I started taking this, it's like no matter, it doesn't even matter like what I eat, even though I try to eat decent, but you know, not always. My bowel movements, to get into my life a little bit here, personally, have been completely perfect. The most perfect bowel movements, the best ones you've ever seen. Eat papaya. Oh, okay. We don't really... Yeah, papaya's not super common here, but that sounds good. Why y'all taking medicine? You take tapeworms? Hell yeah. Easy fix. Not to get gross, but I think a lot of people do consider bowel movements and their bowel health to be it'd be pretty important as they get older, you know what I mean? And I know so many people, especially in the medical field, that struggle with that kind of stuff. And honestly, I think what it really comes down to is fiber and probiotics, just to have the appropriate gut bacteria to help break down food and metabolize and all that kind of stuff. You need a proper way of squatting video. Yeah, you got to get a squatty potty. That's where it's at. So what's this got? We got... All right, so in the bottle, back of the bottle, I'm going to read this to you real quick. You guys always say I could read ingredients and it would sound good, so that's what I'm about to mother effing do. Vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin D3, vitamin E, thiamine, riboflavin, niacin, vitamin B6, folate, vitamin B12, pantothenic acid. Now I can't actually read it because it's like blurry. And then there's a bunch of micronutrient stuff such as magnesium, zinc, copper, magnesium. I can't, why, like, they didn't make this, they need a 4K picture on here, am I right, guys? But anyways, so amount per serving. So then you have safflower, lecithin, inositol, citrus, echinacea, green tea, psyllium husk. That's one big thing that stuck out to me because psyllium husk is quite good for digestive. Yeah, so lactobacillus, which is normally like 20 million units, which is normally in yogurt, but you know, not everyone eats yogurt. Kelp. You guys like kelp? I'm sure you do. I can read you vitamins all day. Yeah, and then there's a bunch of like 42 fruits and vegetables proprietary blend. A lot of crazy stuff in there, you know what I mean? And cyanide too. Just kidding. But poop is all your nephew laughs at his age. Listen, I think poop is kind of like the pinnacle of comedy. I think Sarah Silverman had said it well when she said, like, as far as comedy goes, the tippitiest top tier comedy goes in number 3 is farts, number 2 is poop, and number 1 funniest thing ever is diarrhea. So pretty much have not heard a funnier concept in my life than defecation. Alright, let's move on. Get off the poop topic. Am I reading anymore? I am. This is the last story. You want some gamer juice? When we reached it, we sat together on a long log. He started longingly... Fuck, dude, I guess I already read this, but whatever. He stared longingly into my eyes and talked about how much I hurt him by refusing to be his girlfriend. He had held on to that hope that I would see we belonged together and got the idea if he kissed me, I'd realize it sooner. For a brief moment, I forgot how I had been brought there, and a feeling of pity crept in my mind, but it was fleeting, and the seriousness of my predicament returned. What he would say next convinced me that my earlier suspicions were true. Our time apart had proven to him that I would never really be ready to accept our destiny together, and he was a fool to ever think a girl so beautiful would ever want to be with a screw-up like him. A dream he had showed him that if we died together, things would be better. When he said this, he hid his face and tears began falling from his eyes. He raised his hand with a knife in it to wipe the tear away, and that's when I took my chance. That split second he looked down and took the knife away from me was all it took. I turned and began running as fast as my legs could carry me. It was Bart. Fuck. It was Bart. She got stabbed in that moment. It was Bart. And that's the end. Just kidding. It was dark. Okay. E-girls unite. E-girls in the form of a thought. Thoughts be gone. Thoughtius be gonus. It was dark, but I had made the walk back and forth enough to know what set of lights in the distance belonged to home. Only once did I dare glance back. He was uncomfortably close, but I gave it all I had, knowing if he caught me, I was dead. I neared the edge of the trees and could see the lights of the complex growing closer. I began screaming for help. The burning in my legs was becoming unbearable, and I knew I couldn't go much further. The parking lot neared, and then, poof, a mass of bright lights flooded all I saw before me, and I ran into something. The something grabbed me and picked me up. For a second, I thought he had caught me, and this was the end. I screamed as loud as my burning lungs would allow me. I was not going to die silent and meek. A voice calmly told me it was all over and put his hand on my head. I looked up one last time, confident my defying eyes would be the last thing he saw, but the face was not Brett. It was an older man with a bushy mustache. Our eyes met. "It's okay. I'm a police officer. You're safe now." His words were the sweetest I'd ever heard. I went limp and wailed with relief. A relief I hoped to never exceed. The nightmare was finally over. My mother and sister wrapped their arms around me. We held each other tightly and cried like babies. They got worried when they saw the male on the ground and called the cops. I glanced over to see a police officer with his knee on Brett's back, putting handcuffs on his wrists. Another led us over to a waiting ambulance where I was checking out and eventually... I glanced over to see a police officer with his knee on Brett's back, putting handcuffs on his wrists. Another led us over to a waiting ambulance where I was checked out and eventually cleared. Brett was taken away, and when the time came to determine his bail, it was decided not to give him any. So at least until the trial date, he will be stuck in jail. God knows that's where he belongs. Since this all happened, we had repeated problems with Brett's family. They hold me responsible for what occurred, like I'm some heartless tramp that led him on and caused him to have a nervous breakdown. They egged my mom's car and broke our windows. Even after we called the cops on them, we had no proof they were the people doing it, so they got off. The entire situation became more trouble than it was worth, so we moved to our new place. It's only been a few months since this occurred, and from what the district attorney tells me, it'll likely be over a year before the trial begins. Any updates won't be for a long while. However, if anyone is interested, I'll post any new information I get. Please, everyone, wish me luck, and for all that is holy, let's pray this monster never gets to victimize another girl in his life. Look up Belle Delphine. We all know Belle Delphine and her delicious, refreshing bathwater. I loved all those things where it was like people saying Belle Delphine's water gave them like HIV and stuff like that. So funny. All right, time to read this iggity diggity outro. Hey friends, thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe and click that notification bell to be alerted of all future narration. Fuck. Also, you guys gotta think of something funny I can say at the end of this. You're gonna sleep in my arms. Any news with Phantom Librarian narrator? He's been missing for a while. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's a name I have not heard for quite some time. So, hi from the UK. Hello, UK. We will be having some UK stories next week, and I believe Mr. Lazy Masquerade will participate in that. So I'm excited to share that with y'all. And remember to separate the fart from the fartist. I probably will say that. Thank you, Fry. Hey friends, thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe and click that notification bell to be alerted of all future narrations. If you got a story, be sure to submit them to my subreddit, r/Let's Read Official, and give and receive feedback from the community, and maybe even hear your story featured on the next video. And join my Discord to interact with me and other listeners directly. And if you want to support me even more, grab early access to all future narrations for just $1 a month on Patreon, and maybe even pick up some Let's Read merch on Spreadshirt. And check out the Let's Read podcast, where you can hear all these stories in long compilation form and save huge on data. Located anywhere you listen to podcasts. Links in the bio. Thanks so much, friends. And remember to always separate the fart from the fartist. Shoot the poop with Joel's juice. What's the laziest thing I've ever done? Well, I think the laziest thing I've done is whenever I was streaming video games or something, I had my roommate just play the game for me because I sucked at it so bad. Which is actually sounds kind of great. You have one person playing the games who's really good, and another who's like the personality. But guys, I think this will forever be my outro song. It's Genesis by Grimes, and I really, really like it. But guys, thanks so much for being here. I love you, and I hope you have a good night. This will be out tomorrow, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so I'll be promoting that on Instagram and Twitter and all that good stuff, so go follow me on there if you haven't already. Everything's in the link below, but peace out. And I'm going to try to get like a outro video or something. That would be sweet, I think. Oh yeah, I'm dancing. All right, see you guys.